Palantir stock is the subject of today's video, folks. A lot to get into here. Palantir earnings obviously are out. I'm going to take you through 4 different things in this video. First is we're going to look at what big media, as in CNBC, is saying about Palantir in these earnings in general. Also, Alex Karp did say a few things to CNBC, so I want to run you through what Alex Karp said to CNBC out there, okay? That's what we're going to talk about at first. Then we're going to go super in-depth on the numbers. I'm going to take you through the numbers very in-depth, show you what's important, show you what they're doing very well at, what they can improve on, all those sorts of things. So we'll go very in-depth with numbers. Then we'll talk about basically what I believe is going to happen with the stock price after tomorrow. This stock is making the exact move I thought it would make in regards to that. As I told you guys in the reaction video on the reaction channel yesterday, I thought this stock would go up quite a bit, and they would beat very nicely on revenue, and sure enough, they did that, okay? So we'll talk about what's going to happen with the stock moving forward now at this point in time. And the fourth thing we'll talk about is, am I buying the stock? Am I selling the stock? Am I just going to hold the stock? Where am I going with my position in regards to Palantir? So a lot to get into. Thank you everybody subscribe to the video and to the channel. I appreciate y'all, and also congrats to all Palantir shareholders. It's a massive turnaround going on right now, and it's very, very impressive. Okay, so first off, I just got to say this: it's always awesome when you own a company and like they're talking about it on CNBC and like the stock price is going up huge, especially when it's a company that's not necessarily Tesla, Meta, Apple, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, like one of the stocks they always talk about on there, okay? Now, in terms of Alex Karp, he had a few interesting comments he made to CNBC, okay? He says, our product allows you to wield large language models, meaning the results you can get are reliable. On the commercial side, you can change the margins of your business. Okay, you can change the margins of your business very quickly. You can launch our software with a verbal or written prompt. You don't need to be technical, okay? And he's basically talking about how impressive Palantir's product is and how much it can help companies. And that's the type of thing that this is why big media still matters, because you got to understand something like CNBC, a ton of executives keep an eye on CNBC and watch and see what's going on, okay? And so when you see a guy like this and you're not too familiar with Palantir, let's say, for instance, right? And a lot of you guys that, are super wrapped up in this company, you might assume it's the center of the universe. It's not, okay, to be quite frank. So when you see a guy like this Alex Karp guy, CEO, is talking about, this product they have can change our margins very quickly for the positive, right? You got to start looking into that, and you got to say, well, what is their product? What are they doing here? Okay, and something like this can actually yield actual results, as in numbers, and people actually contacting your company. Okay, now this is very, very important what Alex Karp said from here. Okay, Palantir CEO, engagement and demand for our new AI platform is without precedent. What that basically is telling me is demand for their AI platform is off the charts. Okay. Off the charts, and everybody and their grandma is basically wanting to find out more information. What's going on here? What are you guys up to? How can this help my company do better? How can this help my government agency? And the thing you got to understand about this is all this AI excitement really just started in a major way. Palantir's been talking about AI for 100 years now, okay? And they've been working on this technology. But in terms of all of a sudden, like everybody and their grandma talking about this, CEOs and CFOs, and starting to take this serious, it's really just started in the past 3 to 6 months, folks. The last 3 to 6 months. So you got to understand, like, what this is going to basically add up for deals for Palantir in regards to the next several years is going to be substantial, because when companies are engaging with Palantir, seeing their product and stuff, it's not like Palantir is necessarily closing those deals right now. They're going to close those deals next quarter, the quarter after, the quarter after, the quarter after, okay? And so that's an important thing, but that's phenomenal. That interest is through the roof, obviously, for their product overall, okay? Now, went on to CMCF. First thing they mentioned there, Palantir soars 28% on earnings beat and prediction for full year profitability. Great news, okay? And the next part of this is, and this matters a significant way, right, is what are the headline numbers? So the headline numbers are good and good. They beat on EPS, 5 cents adjusted versus 4 cents expected by analysts. And a lot of people look at the adjusted EPS. That's their own thing there. We'll look at the more in-depth numbers here in just a moment. And revenue, $525 million they came in with, versus 506 was expected. And that's exactly what I told you guys. I expected them to beat. Based upon, what I based it upon was Alex Karp's I saw him in several interviews over the past, let's call it a month or so. And the man seemed extremely confident. And dude, I've been doing this for 15 years. Like, some people laugh at stuff like that. And like, what? You can tell if somebody's confident or unconfident when you've been doing this. I've been doing this on a serious level for 15 flip and flapjacking years. And so I see CEOs talk all the flip and flapjacking time, and CFOs, and I read their body language and all these things. Like, eventually you get better and better at this stuff when you are constantly paying attention to it. No different than a detective can, see certain things that, somebody just can't see. And so when I watched this guy talk, like, it was clear as day, this was the most confident Alex Karp I had seen. I'd never seen Alex Karp this level of confidence. And when I mean confident, I mean true confidence, not the cocky arrogance of like, our product's the best. I mean, just truly, you can just tell in the man's body language and everything that he was extremely confident. And so I'm like, dude, they're gonna beat these revenue estimates. And sure enough, they came in with that. In this environment, folks, it's a massive beat. But that's not the biggest thing. Okay. The biggest thing before we go in depth in numbers, and I'll tell you about what's going to happen with the stock price now and all those sorts of things. This is massive. And this is actually why the stock price is up 20+% after hours. Okay. Right here. The fact that they had another profitable quarter now makes it 2 profitable quarters in a row. Okay. So basically, now that they're starting to talk about we're going to be profitable from here on out, this basically means if them getting into the S&P 500 is now a very realistic possibility. And if you're talking about as each quarter comes and they're profitable again and again and again, they're going to get in the S&P 500. And the closer they get to in the S&P 500, the more you're going to see the stock price move up and move up and move up. Why? Because everybody knows the S&P 500 inclusion is coming, which basically means massive amounts of funds have to buy Palantir stock. Not we choose to or choose not to. They have to. All those passive funds that do all this S&P 500 buying all the time, all of a sudden they have to buy Palantir stock. And so you could see an epic move up in Palantir stock price over the next, I would say, 12 to 24 months here based upon S&P 500 inclusion. If they would have came in and reported a quarter that wasn't profitable here, that would have been a very different situation for the stock price. And their revenue beat wouldn't have even mattered. Their stock price would have been down 10 or 20% after hours if they were unprofitable. I'm telling you, this is what matters in a significant way for the stock price in the short term here, okay? Now, let's take it a step further. Let's go a little in-depth nitty-gritty here for a moment, okay? Very important things I have to show you here. Check out the revenue. Revenue came in at $525 million versus $446 million in the same quarter last year. That's a rise of about $79 million, okay? Very impressive in this environment, but here's the best part. Cost of revenue only rose $13 million, okay? I can tell you if Palantir keeps putting together numbers like that, the gross profit is going to go to the moon, okay? Absolutely ridiculous. When you have that level of difference between your revenue and your cost of revenue, your gross profit is off to the races, okay? And that's exactly what we saw happen. $417 million of gross profit for the company versus $351 million in the same quarter last year. Phenomenal. Now, sales in marketing was up substantially year over year, up almost about $27 million roughly, okay? Now, you might look at that as a negative, oh, they're spending so much. I don't. I have this circle green for a reason. This is great news. Palantir, they have a best-of-breed product. Their products are amazing, okay? What they lack is that sales and marketing team. So if there's one thing this company needs to spend on, it's sales and marketing, okay? They've got to get more deals through. They got to get more clients on 3-year, 5-year, 10-year contracts, more and more and more. It's not for Palantir. Their product has never been a problem. Their product is best of breed. Ask anybody who's an expert in this field. They'll tell you like Palantir's 101. Okay, this is its own league. Okay, and the engineers at that company is phenomenal. So it's not like they need to necessarily spend a fortune more on R&D, okay? And they're not. They're keeping R&D roughly in line. They're just, slightly raising it year over year as far as research and development. This is where they need to really spend on. They need to get massive amounts of clients onto their product, obviously, okay? So that's phenomenal, okay? Obviously, they'll continue to spend R&D, just keep their products at the creme de la creme, the A+ products, and that's great. Love to see that, okay? General administrative, they actually dropped that year over year. That's beautiful, okay? This is flawless execution by Alex Karp. The way this team has turned around this company over the past few quarters has been, in my opinion, it's a historic kind of turn here. Nonetheless, folks, and this is a year that's going to make and break companies, okay? It's going to make and break companies. And we see certain companies that are turning their companies around and getting these ships back on the right tracks, okay? One is obviously Fubo. If you looked at their earnings on Friday, another here is Palantir. They're heading in the right direction. Total operating expenses, in this environment and with sales and marketing going up as much, that's very well done. Okay. Now, here's where things get very interesting, and you've got to pay attention to this. This matters significantly. Look at their interest income. Okay. So their income from operations was about 4.1 million, right? But their interest income was over $20 million. Okay, so that basically means they have a bunch of cash that's somehow yielding them money, and I'll get into that in just a moment, and we'll find out what's going on in their balance sheet here. Okay, and so they're making a fortune off of that now, and so overall it makes them have a positive net income of about $19 million or so here. Okay, now in this higher interest rate environment, their interest income should continue to pour in for quite some time here, nonetheless. Okay, so that's great news. Now, look at this. Stock-based compensation was always so talked about, and it should have been with Palantir, right? This has become less and less and less of an issue. And in terms of total stock-based compensation, obviously down substantially, tens of millions of dollars on a year-over-year basis. So that continues to trend in the right direction here, okay? Now look at this. So big change here in terms of the quarter-over-quarter, okay? They put a bunch of money into marketable securities. Now my guess is they put that into treasury bills. Just a wild guess, okay? So here's the math I did. If they have that money in treasuries bill now at this point in time, they're likely making between, and it depends on what treasury bills they own, they're likely making $70 million to $100 million a year now in basically, you can call it interest income, whatever you want to call it, okay, from their T-bills and just having a bunch of money there. That's a lot of money, okay? 70 mil to 100 mil, and that money should continue to pour in. And I don't know whether they're in 3-month treasury bills or 6 months or 12 months. Who knows, okay? But if you look at treasury bills, a lot of them have been yielding, look at the past 6 months. Treasury bills have pretty much been yielding 4 to 5%, somewhere in there, okay? So nonetheless, folks, they're making bank from that. Okay, total current assets come in at $3.2 billion versus just over $3 billion in this on the previous quarter. Okay, total assets almost $3.7 billion in total assets. This versus total liabilities of $879 million. I love that. Total current liabilities $601 million versus $3.2 billion. Total current assets. Okay, so their balance sheet is in an incredible place. Total stockholder equity of over $2.7 billion, okay? Extremely, extremely, extremely impressive, right? Now, here's where things get even bigger, much bigger, okay? This is Alex Karp talking here. He says, we were profitable again this quarter, and we now anticipate that we will remain profitable each quarter through the end of the year, okay? Obviously, they're not going to give guidance for future years and things like that, okay? And so now, with them coming in with 2 straight profitable quarters, and then now saying Karp actually committing to being profitable on an every quarter basis moving forward, which is a big difference between last quarter. Because what did Alex Karp say last quarter? Okay, Alex Karp said, we are going to be profitable on a yearly basis moving forward. But he would not commit to being profitable on an every quarter basis. The fact that he has done that now basically means S&P 500 inclusion is likely coming in 2024. All they need to do is keep executing now at this point in time the way he believes they're going to execute, and next thing you know, look for S&P 500 inclusion coming in 2024, okay? That is a massive line, and that is likely the reason the stock is up 20+% after hours here, okay? Now, in my opinion, in terms of GAAP earnings, I wouldn't be surprised if this baby really starts to roar. You understand, when you're a company that's a money loser, okay, some companies never get to that profitability stage. But basically the steps are, you start getting close to around break even, then you just eke over the bar, and then you start this kind of like exponential rise of your GAAP EPS. And I believe that's what's going to happen here with Palantir. And you're going to see their GAAP EPS kind of take off like a rocket ship over this next, I would say, 4 to 6 quarters here in regards to this, okay? Now, this matters as much as anything you're going to see here today, okay? This is GAAP. This is generally accepted accounting principles, okay? So you can't like pick and choose this and that, okay? This is GAAP income from operations. When GAAP income from operations actual positive for the first time, okay? We achieved GAAP operating profitability for the first time in our company's history, generating GAAP income from operations of $4 million. This is something the bear said would never happen with this company. Oh, they've always lost money, so they're always going to lose money. And this is why it's important that as investors, you don't, just because a company's done certain things in the past does not mean it's going to continue on that way, whether that's losses, gains, anything like that, okay? And when you run the numbers on Palantir, it was kind of looking like this company was going to get to GAAP income from operations positive at some point this year, and they just did it, okay? Now, in terms of the peak bear sentiment around this stock, that was around Q3 of 22 here, okay, when they had about $62 million GAAP income from operations loss here. That hurt them substantially. That's in the past now at this point in time. And, you know, look at the strides they made in just a few quarters, okay? Look at the trend. This is from $62 million to about $17 million negative, $18 million, to now positive $4 million, okay? If I had to guess, this is going to continue to go up exponentially over this next 4 to 6 quarters. And you're going to start to see GAAP income coming in at tens of millions of dollars, then 50s of millions of dollars, then $100 million plus, okay? So phenomenal to see that. Now, U.S. revenue was up about 23% here, okay? Now, their total revenue was up about 18%. So if I tell you their U.S. revenue is up 23% and their total revenue is up about 18% roughly, where should your mind go? Okay, I'll tell you exactly where your mind should go. Your mind should go to a place of saying something's off there. What is off? Well, that means international business is not quite up to standards right now, okay? If the U.S. market is outgrowing quite substantially, we're talking about 5 percentage points over total revenue. It means international markets are lagging for whatever reason, okay? So nonetheless, obviously that's a situation where your mind should go as an investor, and especially as you get more experience in the market, okay? U.S. commercial revenue up 26% on a year-over-year basis there, okay? I gotta say, that's crazy for 2023. If this was boom times for business, I wouldn't be very impressed with that for Palantir. But in this environment, folks, 26% revenue growth on the commercial business with how strict companies are with spending right now, how much they're watching their pockets, how much they're scared to spend on this and that, even if they think it could get them a positive ROI. It's one of those time periods we're going through right now. And so to put up that sort of growth just speaks to Palantir's team, their sales team, their marketing team, and ultimately their product, okay? U.S. government revenue was up about 22% year over year. That continues to be good. Some people have wanted them to split the commercial business, government business. Keep those babies together, okay? Certain times this is going to be, what gets them through. Certain times going to be commercial business. Now, in terms of overall government revenue, it was up at about 20% roughly. Commercial revenue growth, only 15%, right? Which definitely shows you the international commercial business is weak right now, and long way to go with that one, okay? I don't think it's going to stay. Best of breed products eventually get out there, more known, and they spread like wildfire, okay? And so I believe they just got to continue to build their sales and marketing teams, obviously overseas, and they'll continue to build that business up bigger and bigger. Now, this is their average trailing 12-month revenue per their top 20 customers. $51 million average 12-month revenue for their top 20 customers, right? So they continue to just rake in big customers spending a lot of money, and those customers ultimately end up spending more and more money with Palantir over time here, okay? Now, commercial customer count went from about 184 in the same quarter last year to now 280 in this latest quarter. Our total customer count grew 41% year over year in Q1 2023. It's a very impressive number, especially for a company like Palantir that, remember, Palantir is attracting big money spend customers. They're not attracting little small businesses and mid-sized businesses. And I would love to see Palantir over time have more and more products for small businesses and mid-sized businesses. But let's just be honest. Like as of today, Palantir, they're attracting Fortune 500 type companies, okay? Now, you in order to see a number like that, it's important to see a number like that and reference it against perceived competition, okay? In Snowflake, I don't know if they're really a direct competitor, but people put Snowflake and Palantir in the same sentence, okay? And so if we want to look at total customer count and try to see, is this an impressive number? Is this a bad number? Then let's look at Snowflake's last quarterly numbers, okay? And I can't wait for their next quarterly numbers to come out so we can stack them up better against each other. But if we look at Snowflake, what did Snowflake have for growth in their customer count? Here's what Snowflake had. Snowflake had 44% year-over-year growth in total customers. Now, anytime Palantir can grow somewhat in line with a Snowflake, That's a win, man. Because I can tell you Snowflake is obviously one of those companies that has been exponentially outgrowing Palantir in a substantial way. It doesn't mean it's always going to be like that, but it has been like that. So if we can have a moment in time where, gosh, total customer count, as far as percent growth, is roughly in line, we'll take that. As Palantir shareholders, we'll take that every single time, okay? That's phenomenal. Now, next up here, total contract volume, important number. This was up 60% on a year-over-year basis. Total contract volume. Very important, underrated number there, okay? That's great news. Now you say some customers could back out of contracts and all sorts of things, sure, but you can say that for many businesses, okay? The bottom line is seeing a number like that up 60% year over year, I like that. I like that a lot, okay? Now, what about the deals they closed in the quarter? 64 deals of at least $1 million. This is a company closing big dog deals. 22 deals closed in the quarter that were at least $5 million. And they closed 8 deals which were at least $10 million, okay? Very impressive. I want to know who's running sales over there at Palantir, okay? Who's getting those $10 million deals, those $50 million deals, $100 million deals, whoever that is. Maybe it's Karp personally. Like you gotta wonder sometimes, with these sorts of clients, because they're so impactful, like how much is Karp personally involved in that? I do wonder that, okay? I do wonder that. If we got a company that wants to do a $100 million deal with Palantir, a $500 million deal, $250 million deal, is Karp getting involved in that? I don't know. That's just something I consider and I think about, right? Now, this is important for a lot of investors care about this in a substantial way, right? In terms of their cash flow from operations, 187 mil versus 35 mil in the same quarter last year. Adjusted free cash flow, $189 million versus $30 million in the same quarter last year. Very impressive, right? They ended the quarter with $2.9 billion in cash equivalents, U.S. Treasury securities, and no debt. That matters. Now, also as of March 31st, 2023, they had $950 million available in credit facilities, all of which remains undrawn. That's a thing of beauty, okay? Thing of beauty. Now, there's something in fine print here that I thought was interesting. I don't know if I could pull it up here. So, see this down here in fine print here, okay? Our credit facility includes a $450 million that is available to draw through July 1st, 2023 under a delayed draw term loan term commitment. So that's interesting. The thing is with Palantir, they don't have any need to use that credit facility really. I guess they can if they really want, but they really don't have a need for it. Companies now getting to profitability on a GAAP basis, right? Getting positive cash flow. Like when you look at this, they honestly don't need it. It's cool that they have it around, but when you're a no debt company with this sort of money around and you got treasuries yielding what they're yielding, there's no need for it, just to be quite frank. So it's interesting they got it around. It's cool, but they don't really need it. Now, in terms of guidance, okay, this could have been something that actually sent the stock down. It could have been, but because of the S&P 500 inclusion, everybody's so excited about that and they understand what that means for the stock price that I think a lot of people were kind of overlooking this. But, they guided for 530 mil for this upcoming quarter and $2.2 billion for the total year, or just over 2.2, maybe 2.15, something like that, or $2.1 billion for revenue for the total year. Now, what did analysts have in general for this? Okay, so if we go to Seeking Alpha here, which by the way, if you're ever going to sign up for Seeking Alpha, use the link that's in the description area. That actually has a discount applied to it. So just so you're aware, if you ever want to sign up for Seeking Alpha, use the link that's in my description area, okay? So here we go. Analysts had them at $536 million in terms of revenue guide for this upcoming quarter. Now, so Palantir came basically under that. They had a midpoint of 530. Now, there's two ways of looking at this. One is, business isn't as strong as, analysts thought. Not good. The other way of looking at that is maybe they had some pull forward in demand because obviously revenue in this past quarter was far stronger than analysts anticipated, right? $19 million. So if you want to say, well, this past quarter, revenue came in $19 million stronger than what analysts were expecting. Now, on the midpoint, it's $6 million less. There's still a net positive, right? A net positive of $14 million, right? Between the differences of this, the differences of that, and what Palantir is guiding for and what Palantir actually reported. It's a net positive of $14 million. So you could look at it as a negative, but it's still a positive overall, right? So that's another way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it, you could look at it from a standpoint of maybe Palantir sandbagging a little bit, and Karp, Karp's been public for a few years now. I think he's starting to learn the ropes, and the management team's starting to learn the ropes of Wall Street. And the game of Wall Street is this, okay? Set expectations a little low. If things go bad with your business, then it helps you save face. And if things go better than expected, you come in with nice beats. The game of Wall Street is beating on revenue, beating on EPS. And if you become a company that continuously beats on revenue, continuously beats on earnings per share and your net income, ultimately those stocks are generally rewarded and rewarded handsomely. You don't want to be a company that's known for missing revenue, for missing EPS, and missing your net income. That's not what you want to know. Like, what are the two headline numbers everybody talks about? Earnings per share, revenue. Earnings per share, revenue. That's what hits algos. That's what everybody pays attention to. You want to be known as a company that can come in and beat and beat and beat, okay? So that's just another way of looking at it, in my opinion, in regards to that. Now, in terms of yearly revenue, analysts had $2.2 billion. So if you do the numbers on the midpoint here from Palantir, it looks like, they're expecting in line or just slightly better revenue than what analysts are expecting, roughly for this year in total, okay? So overall, I would say things are on track. And that's something as a long-term investor in this company, I'm very happy to see things are on track in regards to here, okay? Now, before we get into what I think is going to happen with the stock price moving forward now and what I'm planning on doing with the stock, I got to say, this year for Palantir reminds me a lot of kind of the 2019, 2018 time period for a company named Tesla Maesa, okay? So Tesla during kind of 2018, 2019, it was a weird period for them because they were just starting to get to some profitable quarters. Basically, before that, the company was just taking insane losses and insane losses and insane losses, okay? And then they started to actually eke out some profitable quarters. Now, the big difference between Tesla and Palantir is Tesla was having to ramp up gigafactories and facilities and hire crazy amounts of workers and all this stuff that messed up their net income loss in a major way during that time period because obviously it's a manufacturing company, right? Palantir doesn't have to deal with that. So when you see a company like Palantir get into profitability, they're going to likely stay there and expand that rapidly over the coming quarters. You're not going to likely see a situation like you saw with Tesla, where all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, we're starting to make money, and then all of a sudden it's some massive loss. Super unrealistic. Super unrealistic. It's not impossible. Everything's always a possibility in the stock market and in life in general, but it's very unrealistic. It's not Tesla, but it reminds me of Tesla in relation to kind of getting to that profitability, okay? And when Tesla started to eke out some profitable quarters, I mean, the stock price flew, and it flew fast, okay? It was incredible, and that was anybody that was in that time period that was a Tesla investor like myself, like it was a fun time period to be in the stock, and I believe we're getting in that sort of time period here with Palantir, okay? Now, what's going to happen with the stock price moving forward now at this point in time, right? Tomorrow, we'll see what the move is. Maybe it's a 20%-ish type move. We'll see. Here's the deal, okay? Money's going to continue to flood into Palantir for the next, I would say, 6 to 18 months, okay? Continue to flood into this stock. And the reason money's going to continue to flood in the stock is because people are going to know S&P 500 inclusion is likely coming sooner rather than later. So they're going to, fund managers, hedge fund managers and whatnot are going to continue to pile money into this baby and more and more and more. Now, the one thing that could kill the stock price is if they came in with a negative EPS quarter on a GAAP basis. If that happens, then boom, the stock price would get hit 30, 40% in a day. It would be nasty. So as long as Palantir stays profitable here, the money will continue to pour into the stock. It doesn't mean every day the stock's going to go up or every week or even every month, but I can tell you the trend is going to be upward and upward and upward. And that's, listen to this, that's regardless of what happens in the market overall. Doesn't matter at all for Palantir. The market can go nowhere, the market can go down, the market can go up, and you're going to still see money flooding into Palantir for the next many quarters, okay? Unless, once again, they report a GAAP negative number as far as EPS. That changes everything if that was to happen, okay? Now, as far as me personally, what am I planning on doing with the stock, okay? Well, in the public account, I own 4,300 shares, right? Which is the account that's in my private stock group, and they get to see every single move I ever make in that portfolio. If you ever want to join us in there, by the way, check out the description area, and you can apply to join us in the private stock group, right? And I own 4,300 shares. So in this account, I'm probably good with what I own in this particular portfolio. I feel comfortable. With that being said, in my Patreon portfolio, I feel differently, okay? And by the way, if you want access to see every single move I make in my Patreon portfolio, check out the description area. That will be to join my Patreon down there if you're interested in that. It's like $19 a month. It's a no-brainer. You get to see all my moves, and you get to be part of the Discord chat in there with the other members and whatnot, okay? But Palantir is my second biggest position, but I'll be honest, in this account, I want to keep buying. I do want to keep acquiring shares in that particular portfolio. I'm not done buying it, and you'll likely continue to see me buy this for quite some time. I believe Palantir is on its way back to 20 and then to 30 and then to all-time highs after that. And so but obviously it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be over the next, I'd say, 18 to 24 months. We'll see that sort of move. That's my personal opinion. Appreciate everybody joining me as always. Thanks for being subscribed, folks. Thanks for joining me. All my stuff's in the description area. Check that out and have a great day.